So this is where we are. Let's continue our journey today. So what I'll do is I'll create a folder called as let's call it a new project or something. Uh, Client one. Okay. Let's call it client one. What we will achieve with Terraform today is reducing the size of this code into smaller pieces so that it is well understood, right? Now if you see this piece of code, right, it is only creating VPC to public subnets. It is attaching it's creating a route table, it's creating an NACL, attaching that NACL and route table to the subnets, and then creating an EC2 instance. For the EC2 instance, we are also creating a security group that is allowing certain access, and that's mostly it, right? So this is what we are doing as of now. Now what we would like to achieve is reduce this 207 lines of code into smaller fractions so that it is easily understood by folks, right? So if anyone comes in and looks at the code, they should easily be able to understand that. So what I'll do is the first piece of code that we see over here is that of the provider, right? So this is the provider block that we have. So what I'm going to do is create a file called as provider.tf, right? And what are we going to do with this provider.tf? I'm actually going to copy this and put it inside this, right? Very simple. So far so good. Now, what are we going to do? What is the next part of the code doing? It is actually creating our VPC, right? So for VPC, probably I'll call it as vpc.tf, okay? And I'll put the VPC code into this, okay? What I would also like to achieve is instead of repeating all the values or hard coding it in multiple files, right? These blocks, this information that is the CIDR range, the details, right? Now editing in a single file is easy because you just have to change in all locations and that would do. But when it comes to multiple files, putting it in those locations is very difficult. So what can we do? Uh, let's create another folder called as old or demo one. I just created a folder called as demo one, and what I am doing is I am putting all our files related to the first demo into that folder, right? So that the confusion is less. So this is how our stuff looks like now, right? So in the client one.tf, in the main.tf, so we have something of this. What we will be introducing is some variables. So I'll call it as variables.tf. Okay, and here we can define certain variables. So I'll define a variable. The variable name is vpc underscore CIDR underscore block, right? And if you want, you could define the variable here itself. That is, you could define the default value we get, or you could just declare the variable here and actually put the variable in a tf-vars file, right? So that is terraform.tfvars, terraform.tfvars, right? Terraform.tfvars is a variable file. So what is the variable that I want to define? VPC CIDR block. What is the CIDR block that I want to define? 10 dot, let's say it is 38.0.0 slash 16, right? Now that I have defined this, now that I have defined the variable and declared the value, how do I use it over here? It's very simple. You need to change this block to var.vpccidr block. That's it. We just have to change this to that, and this should work for you. In similar fashion, right, what you can do is you could also change the client name. So because this is client one, so let's declare another variable, calling it as client client name, and let's declare the value for client name, that is let's call it as ABC. Okay, the client name is ABC. Now what I want to do with this client name is, I instead of this my VPC, right, I want to have ABC hyphen blah 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 every time that comes in. So what am I going to do? So instead of this my, I will define the variable. Now how do I define this variable? Because this is inside double inverted commas, I need to do something like this: var dot, close the curly brackets, var dot client client underscore name. Okay, this is how I define it. Let's quickly see if that is still the same or not. Client name is this. So how is it going to look? It is going to say abc hyphen vpc.com. Okay, vpc01. This is how it looks like. Now let's go ahead and create our subnets. Subnets dot tf. So we already have the block for creating subnets. I will just copy this piece of code and use this for my subnet. So where is my file? Subnets.tf. This is over this, right? So I already have, or I'm already referencing my VPC, right? So that is my VPC. Yeah, it is my VPC in subnets. So you have this variable now. So you can again define a variable called as subnet underscore CIDR underscore 1A, and you could define another one called as subnet underscore CIDR underscore 1B, right? And what you could do is go to subnets, and instead of using this block, you could call it as var dot subnet underscore CIDR 1A, and this will become var dot subnet CIDR 1B instead of my public subnet. So here you should be using this block, that is this piece, which is going to help you with that, right? So this is number one and this is number two. Okay, and so this is how you could play around with stuff. So let's actually do the initialization and see if that even works. So let's actually do that. So I'm currently inside batch number 39, ls-l. So ours is batch number 38, ls-l. So we are inside the folder client one, and if I do this, I already have all of these files, which is good. Can do a cat to all the star files, everything would be in place. What I need to do is Terraform init first, because I don't have any Terraform binaries and plugins available with me. So what I need to do, I need to do an initialization first. And once the initialization is finished, we can do a Terraform plan and then an apply. Now, I being a bit lazy, what I do is I'll straight away do a Terraform apply, because Terraform apply will also give me a plan of what it wants to execute, right? So here if you see, it is not giving you this information. Okay, now here it is saying that I need to pass in a variable called as this subnet underscore CIDR underscore 1A. Why is that happening? Maybe because in Terraform vars have not entered these values, right? So make sure that you provide these values here, /24. You need to also declare them. Subnet 1b would be 10.38.0.0. No, it should be 1.0/24, right? And cancel this again and again do a Terraform apply, and it should help you with the output. So it is planning to create three resources. The first one is a VPC, right? So it's creating a subnet 1A, subnet 1B, and then creating a VPC. So let's see if it actually creates the VPC or not. So it is now creating the VPC. In the meantime, what I'll do is log into the AWS console. Most probably it would have logged me out. And we are in the region this, so I should be able to see ABC VPC01, which has been created for me, and there should be two subnets ABC, blah 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 blah. Right. So this is how we can create multiple stuff. Now you would argue that this looks much better than this, right? But in future, right, what we are going to do is we are going to introduce something called as modules. Using modules, what would happen is you would be able to write code uh, in such a way that all you have to do is this initial part of the code you are going to write once, and then you are going to call that code multiple times for multiple clients, and then we are going to use it easily. Now this is how you can use variables. Now, if you want, we can proceed further by creating an IGW route table and stuff like that. But the gist is it would still remain the same, right? So the entire process of creation remains the same. There's nothing that is going to change in terms of creation process, right? So everything else remains the same in this. Okay. So if you still want to play around, so what you could do is after subnets have been created, you could actually create a file for route table, and the entire route table association, everything can be kept in the same place. So let's actually do that. So I'll call it as igw.pf. Now IGW needs to be created, so I'll go with this, right? And the only thing is in the IGW, what I'm going to change is this part. So we are going to have this guy over here, the hyphen IGW. So the IGW is now being created. What you can do is create a route table.tf, and then you could have the entire route table. You can create the route table and also make sure that the subnet association of the route table happens in the same place. So maybe you could put both, right? So route table is here. With this, what happens is you don't have to search for your stuff, right? You know that the VPC section of the code is here. You know that the subnet section of the code is here. Route tables is here, and so on. So most of the stuff that you have, right, it would be with you only. Right? So that is the good thing about this part. I want to put in again this client name, and maybe have a hyphen instead of an underscore, right? So this is the route table that is being created. The IGW is being attached. The subnets are also being attached. Everything is in place. You could save it if you want to do a Terraform apply. Most probably it should not give us any errors. It should work out of the box, right? I'll say yes, and most probably it should not throw any errors because the code is already tested yesterday, main.pf. We just are improving the code by putting it into legitimate boxes. That's it, right? So this is how you could keep on writing the code. Now I am not going to introduce new stuff over here. We are just going to leave it like this. I'm not going to keep on adding the other NACLs and stuff. Uh, it's already there. You could just reuse it, and that is going should be working fine. If there are any questions, do let us know, and we would try to address it in the next class. Okay. Right now, this is fine. Let's say there are two people in the team who are working, right? And this is client one that I have, right? And suddenly what happens is I go on a vacation for the next 5 days and I am not available. And the client is very demanding. He says, no, 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 there should be some progress in the work. It cannot stop for 5 days, which is good, right? But what happens is the code is at my place. This code is with me. I have not given this code to my team member, right? So let's consider. I'll create another folder called as teammate. Let's consider this folder to be that my teammates folder, right? So that is on his laptop. This is the folder that we have. So what I can do is let's close this window. This is the code that I have, just to reduce the confusion, right? So I'll just minimize the code. This is the actual code that we have, which is good. So this is creating a VPC, and all the VPC and everything is already stored, right? It's not that the VPC and everything is not there; it's already stored. So what I will do is, what I'm going to do is, I would be actually now, because I'm going on a vacation, right? So I know that my teammate will need the Terraform code to actually build on top of the work, right? So what I do is I actually provide him some pieces of the code. When I mean some pieces of the code, I actually give him all the files that are needed for Terraform to function, right? So what I do, I actually give him a bookmark or a zip file, and that person what he does is he copies everything into his own folder structure. Okay, so this is my teammates folder structure. Everything looks new, right? So if you see the vpc.tf is there, yes. Are the variables declared? Yes. Have the Terraform wars been added? Yes. Subnet is there? Yes. Route table is there? Yes. Providers? Yes. IGW? Yes. Everything is there. Now what this person has to do is, let's say he has to create an NaCl code, NaCl.tf. Now what he needs to do is he needs to create an NaCl code. So what this person will do is he will try to look at the internet to get network access control list. So that is network underscore ACL. Now I'm not referring the old code. Let's actually do it from scratch. So this is the thing that is here, and I'll copy paste it over here. Now from the subnets, what we know is VPC has to be called like this. So I'll call the VPC in this fashion. Make sense? Yes. So egress, what is this person doing? So egress roll number, let's say 100, he's allowing. Let's say I need to do it for 0.0.0.0 slash 0. I need to allow ephemeral ports to the entire world. That is 1024 to 65,535. 65,535, right? And in the ingress, what I'm doing is I'm allowing port number 22 so that people can SSH into my thing. That is 0.0.0. There are already some zeros, so let's use that. Okay, looks good. The name is obviously different, so let's go with the variable. Ba, 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 ba. Right? And I'll call it as pub NaCl for public, right? Excellent, looks good. So I'm very happy as the teammate, right? The teammate is very happy that yes, he was able to add a piece of code and it looked legitimate. Okay. And what it does is he goes into his directory, which is cd ls cd patch number 38, Terraform cd. Okay. So this is the folder where he had, right? So what it does, he knows the steps. He went through a class on Terraform, and he knows that he needs to first do the initialization. So he first initializes the entire setup. Okay. And then what it does is he will do a Terraform apply so that it applies the NaCl piece of code, right? Legitimate. This is what we understood so far. Terraform apply apply. If once he does the apply, right, he says okay 8 to add, and he says 0 to change and 0 to destroy. He's happy that there's nothing being destroyed, so he just says yes. And the moment he types yes, he realizes that there are 8 resources that are being created. That is where the first alarm is. Why is 8 resources being created? Because he just created one resource, that is NaCl. So we come and see, am I saying that we need to create 8 NaCls? No, it's not 8 NaCls. Now what's the problem? So let's see.